The Mafia is one of the most secretive organizations in history. Even though they are known for their violence and ruthlessness, there are some things that are even more frightening than that. Some people still want to join the Mafia despite knowing how dangerous it is. So why do Mafia families hate each other? Let's find out in today's episode. Hi, I'm your host. And in today's episode, we will be taking a look at the dark secrets behind the Mafia and finding out why different Mafia families hate each other so much. So make sure to watch until the end to find out more. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Also, be sure to leave a like if you enjoy the video. In order to understand why Mafia families hate each other, it's important to first know how they started. The Mafia wasn't just created by one person. It was actually started by several groups of people who wanted to make money by any means necessary. These groups were typically made up of family members who had criminal intent. They would work together to carry out their plans and share the profits. Over time, these groups grew and became more organized. They developed codes of conduct and laws that all members had to abide by. This helped them to operate more efficiently and also made them more powerful. As they grew in numbers, they began to attract people from different backgrounds. This led to the creation of different families within the Mafia. Each family had its own distinct culture and way of doing business. But despite their differences, they were all united by their commitment to crime. One of the main reasons why the Mafia families hate each other is because of competition. They are constantly fighting over territory, power, and money. This competition can be traced back to the early days of the Mafia, when different groups were vying for control of the lucrative bootlegging industry. Back then, the Mafia families were willing to do anything to get ahead, including killing each other's family members. This level of violence has continued into modern times. In fact, there have been numerous instances of Mafia families going to war over turf. One of the most famous examples of this was the Mafia War of the 1980s between the Gambino and Gotti families. This war resulted in hundreds of deaths and millions of dollars in property damage. Another reason why the Mafia families hate each other is because of betrayal. Members of the Mafia are not loyal to each other. In fact, they are constantly looking for ways to get ahead. This often means that they are willing to betray their own family members in order to protect themselves. For example, during the Mafia Commission trial of the 1980s, several Mafia bosses testified against each other in order to save themselves. This level of betrayal is unheard of in most families, but it is commonplace in the Mafia. This lack of loyalty creates an atmosphere of paranoia and mistrust. Members of the Mafia are always wondering who they can trust and who is planning to betray them. This makes it difficult for them to work together, and it also contributes to the violence that plagues their organizations. Another reason why the Mafia families hate each other is because of greed. Members of the Mafia are motivated by greed. They are never satisfied with what they have, and they are always looking for more power and money. This greed often leads to conflict with other Mafia families. For example, in the early 1990s, the Russian Mafia began to encroach on the territory of the American Mafia. This led to a series of violent clashes between the two groups. Greed also played a role in the recent war between the Italian and Sicilian Mafia. The two groups have been fighting over control of the lucrative drug trade in Italy. Another reason why Mafia families hate each other is because of revenge. When someone wrongs a Mafia family, they will stop at nothing to get revenge. For example, in 2004, a member of the Bonanno crime family was murdered. The family vowed to avenge their brother's death, and they wasted no time in starting a war with the Genovese crime family. This war resulted in several deaths and a lot of fear among the general public. Another reason why Mafia families hate each other is because of tradition. The Mafia has been around for centuries, and its members are very traditional people. They believe in the old ways of doing things, and they are resistant to change. This tradition creates a sense of us versus them mentality. Mafia families see other Mafia families as outsiders, and they are quick to resort to violence when they feel threatened. Despite the reasons mentioned above, there have been instances where Mafia families have worked together to achieve a common goal. For example, in the early 1980s, all 5 of the New York Mafia families formed an alliance to fight back against the government's efforts to prosecute them. This alliance was successful in thwarting the government's efforts, and it showed that the Mafia families are capable of working together when they have a common enemy. However, these alliances are rare, and they usually fall apart when the common thread is gone. It's important to note that the hatred between Mafia families is not limited to their members. The families also wage war against each other through the media. This is done in order to intimidate rivals and also to recruit new members. For example, in the early 1990s, the Gambino crime family launched a campaign of terror against the Lucchese crime family. This campaign included murder, arson, and extortion. The Gambino family also controlled the media, and they used it to their advantage. They published articles and photographs that portrayed the Lucis as weak and ineffectual. This campaign of terror and propaganda was successful in forcing the Lucis to change their leadership. The hatred between the Mafia families is so intense that it even extends to their funerals. Members of rival families are not allowed to attend each other's funerals, and if they do, they run the risk of being killed. This is because the funeral is seen as a time of mourning, and any display of emotion is likely to be viewed as a sign of weakness. As you might expect, the Mafia has taken great measures to keep their internal conflicts hidden from the public eye. They understand that if the public knew how much violence and hatred there is between the families, it would be very bad for their organization. For example, the Mafia has a long history of controlling the media. They have done this in order to keep journalists from publishing stories about their activities. In addition, the Mafia has a strict code of silence, which means that members of the organization are not allowed to talk to the police or the media. This code of silence makes it very difficult for law enforcement to gather intelligence on the Mafia. Over the years, the Mafia has been able to avoid prosecution for many of their crimes because of the lack of evidence. Despite the best efforts of law enforcement, the Mafia has been able to keep their internal conflicts hidden from the public. This has allowed the families to continue their reign of terror and commit crimes without fear of reprisal. In conclusion, the hatred between the Mafia families is a complex issue with deep roots. Competition, greed, revenge, and tradition are just some of the factors that contribute to the violence that plagues these organizations. While there have been rare instances where the families have worked together, these alliances are usually short-lived. The Mafia has done a good job of keeping their internal conflicts hidden from the public eye. But the violence and hatred between the families is very real. What are your thoughts on the dark secrets behind the Mafia? Let us know in the comments below. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please be sure to like it and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.